part of my walk, man, and I'm pretty vocal about it, so I don't mind discussing it here. Is I'm a survivor of suicide. My son's mother took her life about 12 years ago, and that's something that was right in the middle of me starting growing glass, and so there were honestly a lot of like long hours of me just sitting there on the torch, not just figuring out glass, but figuring out my life. And so I had to get comfortable, like, just standing in one place and dealing with my shit, man, because it would be really, really easy for me to run from a lot of things or just throw my hands up or say this isn't going to work out or whatever. But what that did was say, you know what, you need to blow more glass, not just so your glass gets better, so that you can become a more well-rounded person.
This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. What is shakin' bacons? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. This is our third part of the Rashan Jones episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed what we've brought into so far to date. It's been a lot of fun, this process of putting out this podcast in the first week of the shows. I've been learning a lot in terms of timing and scheduling and, just overload and blah, blah, blah. It's been a interesting journey this past 2 weeks on doing the show, and I appreciate everybody's patience and tuning in and subscribing and leaving comments and the feedback I've been getting. It's been really, really awesome and humbling and inspiring to keep this going, and I'm really excited to keep this going. I've got a pretty good list of artists that I have lined up for interviews coming up, including this Monday's episode with Coil Condenser, which I'm pretty excited about because Coil has a completely different perspective on the industry as an artist, not necessarily in the terms of business, but as being an artist. And that's what I'm looking for as well. Besides talking about business, I want to talk about what it means to be an artist as a glass artist in the industry, not necessarily always focused on the numbers and the marketing and the book work and all that kind of stuff, but really going to your torch, turning it on, saying, what the hell am I going to make today? Drawing a couple pictures possibly, and then bringing it to life in glass. And then through the process of it breaking and having to start over or experimentation, all that fun stuff. So my conversation with Quill that I had, which will be airing on Monday, was definitely, honestly, was unexpected. And I'm glad because I don't want to come into this with a kind of, the only expectations that I have really with the show is to bring you guys quality content. Whether it's stuff you can use that's actionable content for business side of things or just inspiration as being an artist. And, that's what I think Quill really brings in, the whole perspective of being a true artist in the industry. And as you guys can all know, he has definitely proven himself that he's made a name for himself and that he is definitely an artist in terms of that term. So anyhow, thank you guys again. In this episode, we delve a little bit more into the business side of things, and then we open up, and I have, as a lot of shows have, they have their, what they call the lightning round, a couple quick questions, quick answers. So I do introduce that, and I'm still in the process of trying to find out and figure out a different name for the lightning round. So if anybody has any ideas of what we can use, because, again, the lightning round is just a series of quick questions with 30 to 60-second answers. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to come up with a term that has to do with our industry in the terms of the glass. The lightning round is fun, but I prefer to come up with something that's unique. So if anybody has any ideas, definitely leave comments either on the show notes page. You can leave them on my Instagram page. Send me to emails. There's all kind of ways of going about getting a hold of me to leave these comments. And then whoever does come up with the answer that I'm looking for, I will make it known and give you guys credit for it, and maybe a little prize for the winner, in a sense, for helping out with us coming up with a name. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And just so you guys know, too, at the end of the show, Rashan's interview, he does expose a little personal side to him that I got before I actually talked to him on the phone, but it also made me aware that not only as artists are we creating work, but we also deal with our own personal issues, and through our art, we're able to express our issues and also to really delve into them and deal with them. And being able to stand behind the torch in one space for hours at a time with just yourself and your flame and your glass and maybe your music if you have it on, or a TV show or whatever, but to really be able to get into your soul and deal with any issues you're dealing with. It's a kind of an interesting, unique opportunity that we have, and it's a blessing that I find, because I know myself personally, the stuff that I've gone through over the past 16 years of this experience of being a glass artist. I've been able to, work things out in my life and help me get to the point to where I'm at now. And I'm not perfect, and I'm still working out issues. But that being said, Rashan really opens up and talks about something that happened in his life. And then that also has then kind of snowballed into one of our episodes coming up. I want to do an entire week dedicated to mental health issues and topics, because artists, deal with mental health issues. Not everyone, but there's a lot of artists in the industry and just in the world in general that are artists because they have some sort of depression, bipolar, ADHD, some kind of something that they're dealing with, which propels them to be a better artist, but also in other areas of their life, I guess, can get in the way. So we're going to spend an entire week on mental health and see what, talk to people and see what we could do, just to bring more awareness to it, because it's definitely needs to be, the awareness needs to be brought. So anyways, once again, I'm rambling on. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Again, please leave any comments that you might have on the show, things that I can do to make it better. Please go to iTunes and Stitcher, which is up now on Stitcher. If you have the Droid systems for podcasting, please leave me a 5-star review if you feel a 5-star review is necessary. You feel that the show deserves a 5-star review. By leaving your reviews, you will help the show get and gain exposure through the iTunes algorithm that they have. It will then put the show at the top, if not near the top, of the business and arts category. And then if the show becomes featured, it really gets exposure to other people out there, because my goal with this show is just really not only to expose this to the glass community, but also to the business and the arts community in general. And then anybody else that wants to hear, what we do, because I hope that by doing the show, it not only talks to the glass artist, but by someone else out there listening to the show that has no idea what the hell it is we do, they can listen to the show and grasp some sort of idea of what it is that we do in terms of, what we do. So there you go. All right, guys. Again, 6 minutes of rambling. Y'all have a beautiful day, and we will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Podcast and part of on the website, I'm going to have a list of business lingo, like things that you need to know, like what is a CPA, blah, 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 blah. Because when I first started listening to these shows, I would hear this terminology. I'm like, I wouldn't know what the hell they were talking about. But
CPA is a certified public accountant, and an IRA is an individual retirement account.
There you go. Hell yeah.
PSA. but no, man, that's the kind of thing as the glass industry. Look, I spend a lot of time online going through different, what color is that, and what torch should I get, and this, that, and the third. But yeah, man, no one's really talking about after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, let's say you find the perfect torch and you develop the business and you get it going. No one ever talks about that after. It's like the taboo subject. The business skills and pricing are the two taboos in this industry. And for whatever reason, I feel like by shining more light on those issues, everyone's gonna be more organized. We'll be happier. Everyone will be closer to that balance, man, to success. So
yeah, dude, and that honestly, besides teaching safety and health, that is why I'm doing this. My personal goal for myself is when I'm in my 60s, I want to have $6 to $8 million in my retirement fund.
Nice.
And it'll happen, and it's going to be because of my hard work. But I will be honest with everybody listening to this. I am terrible with money. I have made hundreds of thousands of dollars in the 15 years that I've been 16 years now blowing glass, and fortunately, because my wife is very good and organized, I have a house and a roof over my head.
Dude, I know what you're saying. I only laughed because I felt like I knew what you were about to say, and like I'm not trying to make this the why you should be a flame worker with a wife podcast. I'm just saying, you know, we're both relative newlyweds, so you know it's gonna come out.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Here's the deal. Here's how my money worked before my wife. Okay. The very first year. Let's see. My son was in third grade. He was going to a private Catholic school, and here's how my pricing worked. I took his tuition plus the rent on our apartment plus our approximate food bill, which goes up so fast, and divided that by the days of the month, and figured out, and then doubled it so that I could pay bills and then still have money on top of it. Mm-hmm. And that's really how I did that was the first semblance of like business pricing I had, was based on my son's tuition at the time.
Interesting.
And so like now, you know, it progressed over 10 years to where like, you know, okay, I'm doing okay. Like, you know, my work is well received, thankfully. I'm having to travel a lot, but you know, kind of the business is coming together. But I had no idea what I was doing with a lot of my funds, man. I'm in the same boat where, yeah, I'm not great with numbers, or I'm great with numbers. I'm not great with money.
Yeah.
So, my Jiminy Cricket conscience wife is awesome, though.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing, right? Because I could do, I mean, you know, in all reality, like I know there was days where like I'd have because with my ex-wife and I, we have shared custody, and there were days where I'd have my kids and like maybe $5, you know, and I'm like, how in the fuck am I going to feed my kids? And I'd start calling shops and calling friends. Hey, I got these pipes. You know, I can sell these pipes. And, you know, but unfortunately, though, it was the attitude that I had was, oh, I can just go sell some pipes. Instead of, I have this coming up next month. I need to save right now, even if I'm putting $5 a day away for that. But next week this is happening. I got to start preparing for that. So, but it's also a maturity thing.
15 years to have this. I'm in that same realization, man, where, you know, it took me the same 15 years to kind of come to that. And, you know, I tell, like, Gil, who I referenced earlier, the young kid in my shop, I tell him straight up, don't be fooled because you met me at this stage in my business. Shit just got good like 3 years ago, bro. It was 12 years of, like, just figuring it out, and, like, things aren't even great yet, you know what I mean? Like I said, you know, I keep going back, so I'm finding more balance, but as far as, like, you know, if you've never filled up a gun case with pipes and had, like, a quarter tank of gas, and knew that you had to drive around to enough shops that if you didn't get enough sales, you might not make enough gas money to get back to your house. You know, see, that's the kind of thing I came through, man.
Yeah, you might be a redneck, right?
Exactly. Or you might be a pipe maker in the early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Or more importantly, if you don't have that frame of reference, it's hard for me to sometimes talk to people about business. Like, even like Gil, who's joining my studio, like when I try and talk to him about business, it's from a whole different point of view because, frankly, he's not going through that, and he doesn't understand that. To him, everything is like, dude, why are you driving anywhere? Just post that shit on Instagram with this hashtag and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, you're not wrong. I'm just saying that's not the business I came up in. For 10 years, man, I either flew around the country with gun cases full of beads and pendants and home decor, or I drove around my city with the same gun cases filled with pipes and just tried to make it work, man. And, like, you know, that drive, though, man, is that have to succeed mode when, like, you're like, God, I got to feed my kids and put gas in the car. And, I just ran out of propane, and I have to get more propane, or none of that's going to happen. Like, that kind of anxiety in the beginning is what drove me to be a better flame worker, though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I became a better flame worker out of a sense of desperation, basically. Like, man, this has to work. Like, this is like, all my eggs were in this basket. I was a single dad. Like, it has to work. And thankfully, you know, it was able to work out. And a lot of it just came from that sense of anxiety, though, man. I'm like, how am I going to make this happen? So
yeah, it's amazing. You know, and I'd recommend anybody right now that's like a year or two into being a glass artist, if you have a job, keep the job. Like, and they call it a runway, where once you get down your runway, you can eventually take off, and then you can fly away and be a solo glass artist on your own. But if you have a consistent income that's coming in as a job, even if you're flipping burgers at frickin' McDonald's, who gives a shit? And it's going to allow you to really focus your energy and not be stressed out about, am I going to be able to pay my bills this year, because you know you got that paycheck coming in. And then eventually, once you get some money in the bank and you get consistent orders coming in, you know, like I've always done the distributor thing, and it really made things consistent. But then it didn't at the same time, because seasons would come in and they wouldn't pick as much stuff up. And I would go get a job in the summertime, and as soon as I went and got a job in the summertime, I'd get an order for like $5,000, and I'm like, I got to quit this job because I got to make this fucking order. You know, it was like, it was stupid. But like myself personally, my background is in high school and in my first couple of years of college, I worked at Subway for 7 years, And it was a real simple job. I was a high school stoner working at Subway with long hair and, flirting with the girls that came in.
Nice.
But I took full advantage of the situation, and I learned how to do production. We'd prep up all of our, and I'm going to probably end up editing out that S name of the brand of the sandwich shop. But, we'd do our meats and cheeses in the morning, and then at noon, and bake all of our breads and stuff, and then at noon, from noon to 3 o'clock, we crank out 100 sandwiches an hour. I mean, literally. And I became the assistant manager because I proved myself, and then I eventually became a manager, and I had my own shop. And I had the same crew for 5 years, and it was really cool to be with the same group of employees, and we kicked ass, and we were like the number 2 store in the county, and we were one of the highest grossing stores in the nation based on our locality and, all the statistics that they use. But I learned a lot about business and that type of work through that job, and then took those skills and then went into my glass business.
Man, and also about grinding. Like, it sounds like, I came up flipping burgers and stuff, man, and then waiting tables and things, and then got a travel agent gig. But, man, like, what that sounds like to me, though, is that, like, you were totally comfortable in Beard. Like, this is the work that needs to get done. This is the time we're going to do it, and we're going to bang this out. And, to a certain extent, to be able to take something as regimented as, like, Subway sandwiches and, like, having that schedule and learn that system, but then to be able to apply it to a glass studio, that goes back to those business skills again, man. You're totally right. Where it's just like you have the ability to do the prep and do the production and get it out because you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas a lot of times, if you haven't had that experience grinding and anything else, as you're blowing glass, man, you know how frustrating it is in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. It just feels like you're just wasting materials, wasting time. But if you're used to going through a process, then you can accept it as, all right, this is just part of the process. I need to get through it. So I get that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I always laugh when I talk to some newer glass artists, and they're like, I never pulled a point before. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you never pulled? I pulled like 1 million points in 16 years, and I got carpal tunnel because of it, because I pulled points, because you have to. It's like, dude, you got to learn how to pull some points.
The guy I learned under, man, Brian is a real drill sergeant personality. God bless that man, because he is talented and gave me the fundamentals I needed to succeed. So God bless that man. But he was a real drill sergeant personality, man. And so, like, no point was ever straight enough. Like, it never even occurred to me to attach a piece of 9.5 to a piece of tubing until maybe a year after I worked with him, and, like, someone else mentioned doing it. I'm like, wait, why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? You're not pulling points? What's going on?
Yep, exactly. I was the same way, dude. And I was like, what the hell is that? Oh, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, and, like, of course, I'm loyal to the process that I've been through. So, like, when I'm talking to Gil about things, I'm like, hey, man, yes, you can totally attach collars. I get it. Like, he's seen YouTube videos are everywhere. He's watching Dustin Revere kill it on his how-tos on a regular basis. And, like, the fact is, like, attaching a collar is a real thing. What I try and teach him is, like, you know what, man, a lot of the delicate intricacies that I do with my perfume bottles, though, and the shaping I do with the hollow stems on my goblets and stuff, I got a lot of that from pulling points and, like, sitting there understanding how that thin glass is going to flow.
Yeah, man, that's exactly how I teach it. It's amazing how many little small techniques are involved in pulling a point.
Yep. I had the opportunity to have Roger Paramore down here a couple months ago, and we learned in his style contemporary flame working. And he's not a point puller. And I'll tell you that that class changed my flame working habits more than anything else. But I totally still pull points. Like, I'm never just, and even if it's just me stubbornly as an artisan, like, oh, I spent a decade and a half pulling points, my man. I'm not giving up that time. No.
Yep.
just stubborn pride. Like, but it's just, the fact is now I have the ability to interchange. If I want to add a handle to something, I can. If I want to pull a point, I have that ability. But there's a lot of guys walking around that don't have that ability. And I think that it's not about just pulling the point and is that wasteful to the glass. It's just another step in understanding how the glass is going to move. And a ring seal or a Dewar seal to a tube is different than pulling a point and heating it all up evenly, waiting, hesitating, and learning that patience. Like, dude, if you've never pulled a point of 25-4 heavy wall on a Nortel minor, man, like, we just have different backgrounds. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I'm not being holier than thou. I'm just saying, like, in terms of patience, that's where I learned it.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the technology nowadays, it's awesome to see these younger kids getting on and they're getting a GTT or something set up for themselves and dealing with that type of heat base like right off the bat. It's like literally trial by fire in a sense with it. But I kind of I still think that, in terms of the basic foundations of being a glass artist, you've got to learn those foundations. You got to learn how to ball up an even piece. Like when I teach glass, it's like make a blob. That's the first thing you do is make a blob of glass. I don't care how big it is, how ugly it is, just ball it up. But if you can't
gather it up, make it happen.
Yeah, dude. But if you can't make a perfectly round ball of glass, then you shouldn't go any further than until you get that down.
Yes, that's I learned from that too, man. And that's something that fascinates me. And I don't judge the quote unquote newer kids, man. There's a lot, particularly on social media, like Facebook in particular. There's a lot of acrimony, I feel like, between like quote unquote the new school and the old school workers. And I don't look down on anyone, man, at all. I'm always trying to help people up. I don't look down on anyone. And so I see these pieces and I look at a lot of the questions and like, man, it's like trying to 360 dunk up the middle when you can't like dribble through your legs. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like seriously, like literally though. It's like trying to like perfectly cook a filet mignon, but like you can't make a good bacon cheeseburger. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
It's just there's certain skill building that has to come in, and it's not me being like shady as a 15-year-old glass blower. Like you must pull points and toil in the hot salt mines. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that by me doing that, I learned the fundamentals so that I can look at something and say, okay, I understand the concepts behind that, so that I'm not. It's like there's a lot of glass blowing to recipe right now. Like not how do I understand blowing out a form, but okay, how do I make this form in particular?
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what's going on, and that's what I'm witnessing, and it's fascinating to me, man. It's great. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's like I know a couple of local guys here that like my brother, for instance, he's been melting glass for a little bit over 3.5, 4 years now. And I gave him his basic foundation, and we went through that foundation. But because of the foundation, he can now, he can do production if he wants. He can make, he's complimented on his hand spun tubes as if they're being made on a lathe because of the foundation he has. But he's got a couple buddies of his that have been blowing glass for like maybe a year and a half, and these kids are making clines and recyclers. I have never attempted to make a cline, and as long as I've been doing this, I would love to sit down and do it, but to see these kids that, the natural raw talent that comes out and the fact that they've found the glass to be their medium to express themselves, it's inspiring for me, but it's also, like you're saying, it's so fascinating. It's like, man, what the hell?
Like, yeah, look, and I'll be honest, Jason, at first I was like, oh, this sucks. I was like, no. Like I was totally one of those, like, I was coming across as like a curmudgeon or like one of those like a crotchety old Jones, like stay off my lawn and pull points. Like, nah, man. Like, and I had to really look at that inside myself. Like, okay, what's going on inside my head that makes me feel like that? And at first, like, of course, I'm like, okay, is it the money? Because there's a lot of money in pipe making right now, particularly like higher end rig making. Mm-hmm. And since I'm not in that market right away, like I have to accept, like business wise, okay, is this a money thing in me? Is this a jealousy thing? Okay, no, it's not, because I have my own business, so that's fine. So once I kind of put those things to bed, I had to really like just get deeper into why I really even cared, I guess. You know what I mean? And I think just going back to the original foundations of our conversation, like working in the kids program, just the steps that I go through to teach these kids just to like you said, man, just make a gather safely, please. I want you to just make a clear marble.
Yep.
And I feel like there's a lot of kids who are frankly better at me than making rigs who might not be able to make a 2-inch clear marble. Now, this only matters if they want to make a 2-inch clear marble, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But like ultimately in terms of like glass and stuff, what I found was that it's because of how I look at glass, because I've never considered myself, like, except for the first week, just a pipe maker or even just a bead maker or just a goblet maker. Like, I call myself a cup maker now because that's the vein I'm in and the body of work I'm producing most is cup making, and so that's what I identify most with. But ultimately, man, I just want to be a flame worker. And by that, I mean, like, a well-rounded, established flame worker. And I don't mean established in terms of deep pockets or gallery representation or Instagram likes. I mean, like, within my own skill set and accepted by my peers, if I'm asked to sit down and make something, can I make it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be a one-trick pony, as it were. And I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not calling anyone that. I'm not calling anyone out like that. Like, there are one-trick ponies in the industry. What I'm saying is I don't want to be one. And so I fundamentally work on a well-rounded skill base.
Yeah.
And because that's how I look at it, that's where my acrimony was coming from. So I'm like, why don't you guys want to do it like I do it? Well, you know what, man? I don't have all the answers. So once I realized what it was, I was able to put that to bed, and now I'm just fascinated by it. I'm not even mad. I'm like, oh, this is just amazing. Like,
yeah, it's mind blowing, dude. I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat, man. So Well, I want to kind of move on and get ourselves. We pretty much covered all the bases here, and get
Cool.
ourselves into our little bit of a lightning round here. Wasn't sure what to call it because the lightning round is being used a lot out there in the podcast world. So I will come up with a better name for it here eventually. But for now, we're going to call it the lightning round, and I might even throw a little lightning and thunder sound effect in there just for shits and giggles.
Dude, you gotta be like, now we're gonna strike the kiln.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure something out.
Yeah,
Anyway.
exactly. Yeah, something. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, dude. So if the question is basically if you can give me like a quick 30 to 60-second answer, and here we go, dude. So all right, man. So if you could work with any living glass artist that you haven't worked with before, who is it and why?
Oh, man, right now, Bo Barrett. And here's why. Because I know Bo Barrett. We hang out. We drink beers. I know he's a family man. I know that on a certain level, man, we like the same music, same values, everything. We've sold together. We've hung out together at shows. But, I've never really got to do any work with him. And so for someone I haven't worked with, I'd probably say Bo.
Cool. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
If you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, what is it?
Numbing. I'll say numbing.
Cool. Good answer.
Yeah.
Your top 5 favorite colors?
Oh, let's see. Amber Purple. Andromeda. Mystery Adventurine. North Star Light Yellow. And Indigo Luster, which technically doesn't exist anymore, so we'll go with Blue Moon.
Cool.
So yeah, man. I like real silvery colors. I really lean towards a lot of that, and a lot of my color palette is based on where I live. I'm most comfortable working in the colors that I see every day here in Albuquerque, and we have an amazing spectrum. But that's why if you go through my body of work, you don't really see a lot of really, really bright cadmiums. I don't do a lot of bright cherry reds and true acid yellows, things like that, because it's not the colors I see or what I'm familiar with seeing how they go together. I'm a bit more muted and that like a amber purple with some gold fume or something like that is more my style.
Yeah, cool. Real, very earthy.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it. If you could give your beginning glass-blowing self any advice, what would it be?
A little more glass. That's it.
There you
go. That. All the secrets are there. All the answers are there. And I don't just mean glass-wise. I mean part of my walk, man, and I'm pretty vocal about it, so I don't mind discussing it here, is I'm a survivor of suicide. My son's mother took her life about 12 years ago, and that's something that was right in the middle of me starting blowing glass. And so there were honestly a lot of long hours of me just sitting there on the torch, not just figuring out glass, but figuring out my life. And so I had to get comfortable just standing in one place and dealing with my shit, man, because it would be really, really easy for me to run from a lot of things or just throw my hands up or say this isn't going to work out or whatever. But what that did was say, you know what? You need to blow more glass, not just so your glass gets better, so that you can become a more well-rounded person. And that may not be for everyone, but to speak to a younger me, blow more glass, man. Figure your shit out.
That's awesome, bro. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us because I saw that in your notes and I was blown away.
Yeah, man. Well, I wanted to touch on it only because, and again, this is all something I see prevalent via social media, man. For whatever reason, man, suicide touches a lot of us in the flame working community. Whether it be a fellow flame worker that passed or they support someone who's been through that kind of thing or just someone that identifies with that. And the thing about suicide is a lot of the problem with it is the stigma attached to it because it stays in the dark, because people are so uncomfortable talking about it. And, for me to be uncomfortable talking about it would be uncomfortable with my own life. And so, just to go from I have a plan with a person and this is what we're doing, we're building a family, to all of a sudden in a very tragic way, that not being the plan, to come through that, glass helped me, man. Glass saved my life. And, people who are really close to me know that about me. And now, I don't mind telling the world because that was my coping mechanism. I don't think that glass can help every survivor of suicide cope, but it definitely helped me. It gave me the time I needed and forced me into a situation where financially, I had to stand in one place and sort through my shit. And maybe it's not something as tragic as suicide. Maybe it's just dealing with bills or we were talking about shipping and stuff before. Whatever you're going through, glass as a full-time profession will give you time to work on it because you can just sit there and just, I'm not saying that you need to go into autopilot and not pay attention to your glass, but there's a certain distance where your mind travels. and you just, you think about stuff, man. And so for me, it was either like, think about rap lyrics or deal with my shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I understand because like I know like I guess 3 years ago now my grandfather passed away, and his backstory basically he had Parkinson's for a little bit over 35 years, and so I saw the downfall and the struggles him and my grandmother went through, and when he passed, it was like it was really hard for me to to deal with that struggle, and I mean there was days where I was on my torch and I couldn't hardly see because I had tears rolling down my face, but it was the same thing. It was like, it was just complete therapy, wipe my tears away and just keep going. And at those times, I wouldn't have any music on. I wouldn't have my TV on and nothing. It was just the sound of my glass, the sound of my noise I was making, the birds out in the backyard, whatever, and just me and my soul and healing and dealing with whatever it was I was dealing with. So it's definitely, it's an amazing thing. And as much of a deterrent as glass can be when things go wrong, when you mix personal issues like that in there, it could exasperate what you're dealing with in your glass. But if you can get a bit of control of it and focus, it's amazing what you can do for yourself and how you can grow and mature as a person and as a glass artist also. Exactly.
That's that's. I mean, it's 3 words: blow more glass. I mean, it encompasses so much more than that. But like, I mean, that's the key. And because like my struggle is not everyone's struggle, and like what you went through with your grandfather and like his passing and just with your own family, that's not going to be someone else's struggle. But ultimately, whatever their struggle is, blow more glass, man.
Yeah.
And more than likely, if you can't find a solution, you will more than likely find a way to cope.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I'm glad we talked about that, man. That's awesome. So,
sorry, man. That was longer.
No,
that was not quite lightning round. My bad.
Yeah, no, dude. It is all good, brother. Now we're gonna go back to it. So, what's your worst injury you've ever had?
Oh man, I was working at Gray Matter Studios. My buddy Jonathan Casto was working and had some friends in the studio, and one of them said something to me, and I was putting together it was a Chinese 32 millimeter heavy wall base vessel. It was about 9 inches tall, and the foot for it was about 5 inches. And I was doing a cold assembly, so I had it together. I was putting it together by hand, so I'm rocking it back and forth in my Lynx flame. And someone said something to me. I looked over as I was rolling my hand, and I dropped my entire left hand directly full bore into the hottest part of my Lynx flame. Now, the important things. I finished the piece only because my nerve endings were dead. Like, I did not freak out or anything. Like, it was one of those things, though, that, like, I saw my hand in the flame, and I had to grab my hand and pull it out. Like, I was in so much shock that I could not move my left hand out.
Holy
my
shit.
right hand pulled my left hand out. And, I finished the piece, went to the restroom, talked to the guys real quick, and immediately left. And that was the worst injuries I've had. I was off for, I think I took 4.5 weeks off, like off, and then like another 4 weeks of just like light work, doing beads and pendants, like doing light dots, and like, I'm pulling like, 2 feet of 4 mil so I can do a dot with my left hand, so I don't have to have it anywhere near the torch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was it. It took me a while to recover. I will tell you just funny flame working things real quick. I'm black. Well, I'm brown. And so if you burn your hand that bad, the melanin doesn't come back right away.
Mm-hmm.
So like the entire back of my hand was a completely different color for like 2 months. It was crazy.
Interesting. Yeah, and I'm a white guy, but I'm pretty tan being in Florida, and my major burns are all pretty dark.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, I've hit my hand on my flame twice in 16 years. Yeah, and both times it was the 2 a.m. I should be in bed instead of in the studio. So when I'm tired, I don't work anymore because the first time literally burnt a hole into my knuckle on my left pointer finger. And yeah, dude. And this is, back when I did this was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months into blown glass. So I had never experienced a burn like that before. And I went to Walgreens pharmacy and like, hey, what should I do for this? And she's like, go to the ER.
What are you doing? What are you doing here? You need to go to the ER immediately.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm not going to the ER. I'm going to take care of this myself. So, I'm glad we're talking about this because part of this podcast is I'm going to bring with a dermatologist to talk about issues with skin and really find the best way to deal with burns because like glass terminology, there's 45,000 different ways to deal with a burn.
Yep.
I've found personally myself that once the wound is cold, because when you do burn yourself, the core of your burn is still hot, and once that cools off, lavender I've found is the best thing to use, but it has to be cool because I put lavender on my hand after burning it immediately, and because it was still hot, the lavender actually made like a grease burn on my hand because of the internal heat still. So I found
I actually use lavender if it hasn't broken skin. I'll use lavender.
Yeah.
Even if it's a bad burn, as long as the blister hasn't popped, if it hasn't broken skin, I'll use lavender. And I'll email you a source, man. You might want to look into it too. I was reading something that lavender into an open wound can cause it not to heal as fast. I'm not going to drop speculation on your podcast.
No, I agree, dude.
I also agree with that.
No, I agree because I had a ex-girlfriend of mine who made a burn salve, and it was awesome stuff. But I burnt my forearm really bad at Disney working on stage one day, and I used her stuff, and it was an open wound, and it took forever for it to heal. And it's actually scarred worse than I would have ever had a burn scar. And I think it was because, like you're saying, maybe because of the lavender that was in there. Because normally the stuff that when she made it, I would use it on like basic little small things, and the pain would go away right away. And in like 3 days, it was like you wouldn't even know I burnt myself. But the open wound one, it's interesting. What I do find though is I think it's Johnson & Johnson has a bandage that they've created that's skin thin, and it's got a pad in the center that actually absorbs fluids that you release in terms of creating a blister.
That'd be great.
And you can actually leave them on, and they're waterproof. So, you can leave it on for 2 weeks, and like the edges will peel up a little bit, but you can just trim the edges or just take it off. And it's kind of gross, but when I burnt my knuckle, and I took full advantage of this, and I experimented with different things, and kept a little journal trying to figure things out. But when I removed that bandage, it literally created a bubble that filled the hole in my hand. And when I removed the bandage, that's when I realized I had this hole into my tendons of my hand, kind of thing. So I immediately put a new bandage on, and it's amazing, dude, how fast the body heals. Even though I was, it took about 3 months till it didn't hurt, So it's pretty crazy.
Amazing creatures, dude. Yeah, we are amazing creatures.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the last question of our lightning round, dude, and this is a fun one for you. See what you got here. If you were on an island, stranded, that had a glass studio and only supplied your gases and kiln, what 5 items would you bring?
All right, I got you. I'm already ready. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. I'm going to need a pallet of 19 mil by 4 mil tubing. Heavy wall 19 mil.
Okay.
Can I do that? Can I do that?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, cool. I need my Herbert Arnold goblet claws, but I bought them as a set, man, so I think that's only one item. I think there's 2 of them, but it's a set, so that's only one item.
Yeah, that counts as one. Yeah,
so
there you go.
2. Okay, cool. Sweet. I'm gonna bring. Let's bring another pallet of 12 mil, and we need about 100 pounds of amber purple. And man, I'm on a deserted island.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm bringing a bowl push, man. Let's do it. I'm bringing a bowl push.
Hell yeah.
Go on. It's like this. I figure if there's an island, I won't need reamers because I can make them out of wood. Even if I make a new